So we have set the stage very clearly that the Indians are always late. It's a miracle that Hero didn't have palpitations and other developments.
He did.
It's a miracle, yeah. He's still standing. Anyway, so first of all, thank you to the hosts, Hero and Asuka. You've been hosting us, and this is our second event together. And you've been most gracious, so a big hand to our hosts. Second, thank you all for coming. Some of you have come all the way from Boston, Duxbury. Yeah. And before I crack on, I must thank two people here. Mike Lubrano, that chap there, with the spectacles, raising hands. There he is. And Alexander Brenner, right here. They were my sous chefs today. They were slaving away in the kitchen non-stop. And they're both of Italian heritage. So it is not just us Indians. You combine the Indian element with the Italians.
Welcome
All right.
I was 40 minutes early.
Well, it's entirely my fault. All right, there we go. But before we crack on with this evening, last time I gave a speech, my German friend said that the speech was, shall we say, rubbish, to use polite language. And you know you've hit rock bottom when the Germans tell you you have spoken poorly. And so today I will try to redeem myself, and I'm going to make 3 points. 1, I'm going to briefly talk about history. 2, I'm going to talk about the current realities. And 3, I am going to talk about the future. So when we talk of history, few people here in the US know that India and Japan go back a pretty long way. Zen is something associated with Japan. But the root of Zen was initially Chan. And the root of Chan was Dhyan. Buddhism went all the way, a few centuries ago, through East Asia all the way to Japan. And a lot of the Japanese language was inspired by some of the Indian grammatical structure at that time. So in some ways, ancient India lives on more in Japan than modern India because of the ravages of colonization and repeated waves of cultural destruction. And during our independence movement, the big fillip to the Indian independence movement was 1905, when the Japanese beat the Russians, and the Asians felt, hang on a minute, we could punch up with the white boys. We could do it. And so thereafter, the Japanese did support the Indian independence movement, particularly the more fiery characters. They would always end up fleeing to Japan and marrying Japanese women for some strange,
so beautiful.
Exactly, for not unobvious reasons. And then this relationship in recent years has deepened further, and it is more than defense. Japan is an aging society, India is a young society. Japan has savings, India has opportunities for investment. And in fact, the 15 billion high-speed railway is Japanese investment in India. And Japan is the biggest foreign direct investor in India. And yes, we are exasperating, we never show up on time, we never speak to and we are utterly unprofessional at all times, especially when we are influenced by Texans who take us drinking till 6 in the morning. You're welcome. But the history of the India-Japanese relationship runs deep and long. Now, what is the current reality today? Well, we know, as I speak, and those of you who have gone to my website, and I'll tell you about it in a bit, I'm not representing the Indian government, therefore I'm free to speak as I wish. And a few days ago, there was a clash, yet another clash on the border. The clash happened in Tawang. Tawang is a historic monastery. It's the oldest monastery in Asia. It is the only bit of original Tibet not in Chinese hands. In 1962, China actually took over Tibet. I have family members who fought in that conflict. I'm an ex-officer. I served. I come from a Rajput family, which is somewhat like the samurais, the equivalent, old fighting legacy. And 62 was a disaster for us. Fast forward, there was peace for a while, and in 2020 there was a bloody clash. Now, I'm not going to make you read all that I've written. Here is Glenn Carl. He retired from the CIA. He was my co-author along with the former chief of Indian intelligence, and we penned a 13,000 plus word piece on India-China tensions, which I expect you to read tomorrow. There's no free dinner ever. But I wrote a piece, a shorter piece, on why Tawang matters and why this battle is for the battle of Tibetan Buddhism. So we are at a stage when China is flexing its muscles. There are protests inside. Very few people know that our joint Russian-Chinese fleet circumnavigated Honshu last year. And that was, shall we say, rather alarming. It's akin to someone walking up and down your front door waving a gun. Now, we already know that February 24th this year has changed the world as we know it. The post-war order is dead. We now are back to the age of war. Modern monetary theory is dead as a result. Inflation is back. Interest rates are up. We have a very diverse group. We have people who've come from Wall Street. We have people who come from the media. There's a Scot who's come here to remind me that I lost 2 finals in Scotland, not one in debate. Just the confidence boost I needed before I spoke. But the point is, in the UK too, you've had 5 prime ministers since Brexit. Some of the wounds are self-inflicted.
Not my fault.
But, and here's the point, but inflation and cost of living crisis has taken a toll. So we live in a world which is, to use jargon from Pentagon, more volatile, more uncertain, more complex, and more ambiguous than before. What they say, VUCA. So that is the current reality, and it is not just defense, it is not just war, it is not just geopolitics, it's also economics. Some of the imbalances since 1991 are now playing out. And so, what is the vision for the future? One vision of the future is might is right. You push your neighbors, you exercise dominance, you thump your chest like a gorilla, and life is good. It's winners take all. What's bad? Nothing. The other view of the world represents something like this room in a grand and glorious country called America. For all its faults, and there are many faults, and I criticize America a lot, but one of the good things here is you have people from NPR. There are 2 people from NPR. Scotland, India, you have a Texan right there without his gun, sadly. Murray from Finland. You've got Francis Flavin. You've got Tim Tyler. You've got people from different countries, different cultures, different ethnicities. And we believe in a multilateral, rules-based, consensual, relational. Yes, there are differences, but we can work it out. And a more cooperative model of the world. And I think we are at risk, even within countries, given the polarization after social media. The social contract has frayed, and international institutions have declined. See, I don't work for the Indian government, so I can say the UN is a disaster. The IMF is up eggs creek, and the World Bank is basically a bureaucratic behemoth that does very little. Apologies for those who are in the World Bank. But the reality is that all of that said, the principle of multilateral order, or the principle of rules-based order, stands, and it requires work. And I think if the future is to be a bit less grim than it can be, it will happen only when we sit down, eat together, speak together, and work together. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, help yourself to the food. Thank you very much.